Welcome to the Feed the Soul Company podcast, a space I've created to share my story and to encourage you to share yours. I'm your host, Liv Setla, and with me today is very special guest, Cari Bohm. Cari Bohm is a redshirt sophomore at the University of Illinois. She's a middle blocker there. Um, and some of her accolades, she's academic All Big Ten in 2023, which is huge. She's a stud on and off the court. Also, she started all 30 matches in 2023, so huge props to that. But besides the court, she's just an awesome person on and off the court. I met Kari when I was 14, I believe. We were on the same club team, and we played together for 2 years. Is that correct, Kari?
Not long enough.
No, not long enough, but I love Kari, guys. Like she is so bubbly. She is so easy to talk to. And I remember being a kid, like I just felt I always like gravitated toward Kari, like just such an easy person to be around, and I could feel like I could be my weird self. Not even my weird self, just like I could be myself around her, and she's so welcoming. And I know you guys will feel that when she talks to you guys now on the podcast. But Kari, introduce yourself and tell the podcast who you are.
That was such a nice intro. Thank you. Well, thanks for having me. I feel honored to be here. I'm Kari. I am very weird, actually. Like I
I
feel
love
like
that.
yourself like really sums it up. Like I am not afraid to be who I am. I'm really loud, very extroverted, very energetic, very squirrel-brained, but I'm a volleyball player. I am in the business school studying business management. I hope to work some seasonal jobs and go into outdoor education after college, outdoor leadership. Um, and yeah.
I love that. Okay, so starting off, you already even kind of talked about some of your aspirations after this. As a redshirt sophomore, playing your sport, being awesome on the court, how do you think like your journey through life? Kari and I just caught up a little bit about our lives right before this, and she was basically saying like, I love what I'm doing here, but also I'm super excited for life after this. And I think that's really cool, especially being an athlete. And I told her this, I think most athletes who are successful in their sport in the moment are solely focused on that. But it's for me to hear, okay, she's really excited about what she's doing and what she's excited to do after. How did you gain this perspective? How are you so excited about that?
Yeah. So I've dedicated pretty much my whole life to volleyball. I mean, I started when I was 12, but since I was 12, like it was volleyball, 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 and I love my sport. I like truly have such a deep passion for it, and I don't regret it for a second. But I have another life that I haven't lived yet. I want to go explore this world. I want to travel. I want to adventure. I I have so many things I want to do, and it's a life that isn't super cooperative with the D1 athlete schedule. And I sacrificed that to be able to play my sport, and I'm really content with that decision, but I'm really excited for, after volleyball. I've always kind of had the perspective that it's like I have 5 years, 5 years of eligibility to do what I love in college. Like that is a finite, time restricted thing, but I have the rest of my life to go explore this world. Um, and it's kind of that mentality of like it'll be there for me. Like it's waiting. Like it's not going away. Like I'm gonna be able to see the mountains and the deserts and everything I haven't seen yet. Like I have time.
That is such a great like perspective on it. I love your wisdom, like just how you speak about it. Like I know everything you just said are realizations I've made, but it's taken me a while to make now that I'm in my senior year. But you expressing that now is just so awesome. Um, I want you to tell the podcast a little bit more about your journey to Illinois, and then a little bit more about you. Like, how did you find this love for the outdoors? How did you get to Illinois? Just more
Yeah.
about your story there.
Yeah, so let's talk about Illinois first. So I grew up in Ann Arbor, Michigan, which is a Big Ten school. Grew up a huge University of Michigan fan, watching all their games. So I think I knew like once I decided that I wanted to play college sports, like I knew I was going Big Ten. Like I was a Big Ten girl, born and raised. And it was kind of a weird recruiting process because my class was the COVID year. Um, so I really didn't get to visit any schools. Like we had no official visits. We couldn't even really do unofficial visits because travel was so restricted. Like it was 2020 summer, like heat of COVID.
Wow.
So, um, I had to rely on the relationships that I was building over the phone. And I was talking to a couple Big Ten schools, but the Illinois coaches were so genuine, and I could tell like they really cared. And like I've always been a people person, and I knew that wherever I went, like even if it was the perfect school, the perfect city, the perfect like ranking, whatever, like if I didn't like the people that I was around, like if we didn't mesh, like I wasn't gonna have a good time. Like I kind of knew that. So I was really looking for the school where I thought like the people around me, like would feel supported and I would fit with them the best. And from the very beginning, like the first phone call I had with the Illinois coaches, I was like, this is where I want to go. Like, I feel like every school, like I'm sure you heard this, like every school when you're being recruited is like, we're family. Like, yeah, we're family.
Mhm.
But like, I don't know, like I didn't really believe them. I talked to Illinois, I was like, wait, no, I believe them. And now that I'm
No.
here, like I was right. Like it was definitely a scary decision. Like real talk, I remember crying to my mom right before I made the decision because I was so excited. Like this was my top school from the beginning. But I was like, I've never been inside the gym. I've never met the coach face to face.
Mhm.
Like, I don't know what I want to study yet. Never like been to Central Illinois. I never thought I was going to stay in the Midwest. Ironic considering I wanted to go Big Ten, but like I was terrified, but I trusted my gut. I went with the people that, you know, like felt right on like a soul connection level. Um yeah, I don't regret it for a second. That being said, I did sacrifice like my deep-rooted love for the outdoors. I grew up going to summer camp every year. I missed 2 years. I missed 1 year because I was doing a USA volleyball camp, and I regret that a lot. And then I missed another for COVID, which was out of my control. And this camp, like, truly formed who I am today. Like, some of my best friends, like, lifelong friends I've met at this camp, my core values I developed at this camp. Can't say enough good things about summer camp. And through this camp, I went on a lot of different trips, a lot of different like outdoor adventure, backcountry hiking, kayaking, canoeing, all these things. I was like, this is what I want to do. Like, I want to go somewhere that I can do this. But I kind of realized as I was going through the recruiting process and talking to more and more athletes that I was like, probably not gonna have time to go on a week-long backpacking trip or even one backpacking trip. That's not really a thing. And I kind of realized like I was gonna have to like pick what I wanted to do. And I thought about it and I was like, I love volleyball. I have 5 years to do this. Again, that was my mentality. I was like, the rest of the world can wait. So I said, I'm going to go to the best school I can go for volleyball that I think my people are at. And that was how I got to Illinois. Like I did have to sacrifice that love for the outdoors. That being said, there are outdoor spaces everywhere. You have to work to find them a little harder here. But like even this morning, like I went on a hike with my girlfriend. Like we went to a nature preserve. So yeah.
OMG, Kari, thank you so much for sharing all of that. So, first of all, starting with that recruiting process, I just wanted to comment on that. So brave of you to make that decision over the phone. Like, from my experience at UNLV, I was able to go there and I felt the family. Like, that's how I knew it was different. Like to your point, many colleges are trying to recruit you and say, we're family, we're close. But it's when you get there, that's when you realize that. And the fact that you were almost able to feel that over the phone is really cool, especially this new wave of recruiting and this new, like, since COVID, a lot more is being online. And I think you're really at the start of that. So, and then to make that life-changing decision to move and ultimately, I guess, not give up, but I guess put your other passion to the side. And the way you talk about the outdoors, like clearly that's a huge, like that's deep rooted. And you use the word soul in there, like that's when you know, like that's really a part of you. So, and just hearing you weigh that decision. And also, how old were you at the time of all this? Probably like
I was 15. Yeah.
15? Like, holy crap, like, can you like imagine how crazy this sounds? Like all of these things that like how deeply you feel about all this, the decisions you're making, like at a crazy time in the world, like so incredible. And
And what's
thank
so
you for
funny is at the time I felt behind. I was like, I'm so old. Like everything
sharing.
figured it out because I was the first class that had that like quiet period, yeah.
Yeah, OMG. So I think first of all, for our listeners, reminder, like even when you feel behind in things, or especially for the high school students and recruiting, like it's all gonna work out in the end and divine timing, like everything is gonna happen for a reason and it will all work out. But Kari, thank you so much for sharing that. And I want to also ask just to get to know a little bit more about you. You've shared a lot about your passions, but also um if I were to Google Cari Bohm, what's maybe something that won't come up but is pretty crucial to your story and who you are?
Yeah, I thought a lot about this question because I am a very, like, multifaceted person, so I was like, "There's a lot of directions I could take this." Like, I could
Oh,
talk about so many different things, but I think, like, the number one thing, which I don't actually talk about that much, but I think a lot of people might resonate with is, like, you Google me, there's a lot of photos of, like, me playing, and in every single photo, I have, like, this huge smile plastered across my face, like, I've had nicknames like Smiley or Smiles, like, just because like, when I play, like, I'm always smiling, and, like, I have always been told by my coaches, like, my asset is that I bring the energy. Like, when I step on the court, like, I'm the energy booster. I'm gonna be the loudest one on the court. Like, I'm the cheerleader, but it goes deeper than that. Like, that's, like, what I bring. But what a lot of people don't know is I think I was 15. I was diagnosed with depression, and, like, that's a battle I still face every single day. And people look at me and they're like, she is having a blast, like the most happiest person in the world. And a lot of the times I am having a blast actually. But like the battle of like knowing that like your job is to bring the energy and feeling like you don't have it, I think like that's a hard thing to weigh. And I think there's probably a lot of people out there because like in every sport and honestly like a lot of places in life, like a way to bring people up is to have that positive energy. And to be able to find that when you feel like you have no positivity in you is a really hard thing. And I think it can feel really isolating. So like to know that like there's a lot of people that are going through that. And even if they seem like the happiest person in the world, like you really don't know their story.
Kari, thank you so much for sharing that. And also, as someone who can relate to that, like I also feel on my team, I'm part of the energy. I'm bringing that, and also, I just love the way you talk about it. Like it's deeper. Like you're really pouring yourself into your team. It's not just a woohoo, let's go, guys.
Yeah.
It's like you're really like giving like your energy to the team, and also someone who I don't remember how old I was. I was diagnosed with depression, struggled with that. My journey's a little bit different now as I've been able to work through things, but I think um like I let's just talk about that a little bit more, like that would mix with depression. I think it's so hard to explain what it is to somebody who doesn't know what it is.
Yeah.
And I've had this experience recently with my boyfriend. Like I was like, because I know like when I'm in a depressive episode, yeah, I just like I tend to push people away. It's not my I'm not proud of it, but I tend to isolate and like you said, it's isolating. And but he was like, Liv, like you're being cold to me. You're being distant. And I was like, I'm not trying to. Like I really and it doesn't feel like it's me. And um it feels deeper. And so like I think you can relate to this like these feelings of like really deep because I can tell you're very passionate, you feel very happy, you give on such a high level, but then also like you probably get to those like depths at pretty low level. So I'm like, as someone who maybe also feels those things, what do you think you could, I guess, tell the listeners who don't understand necessarily to help others that are facing that?
Yeah. I think like the battle I face most is like I feel like there is an expectation from others to be some sort of way. And when I'm not that some sort of way, like when I'm not feeling good, I fake it till I make it. But like that energy has to come from somewhere. So then there's going to be a deficit somewhere else in my life. Sometimes
Mm,
it's school, sometimes it's sleep, sometimes it's in my personal relationships. Like I'm pushing people away, like you said, or sometimes it's performance on the court. And I remember it was mid-October last year, and I was having like a rough few weeks, just wasn't playing my best. And my coach was like, said something to me like, I feel like you're just like not trying that hard. And she meant it like not in a bad way. She was like, you're just like not your usual self. Like you're kind of like gray. And in me, I was like, I am trying so hard. Like, can't you see? And
mm,
we went to coffee like 2 days later, and I broke down like to my coach. I literally cried for like 2 hours in this coffee shop. And I was like, I just want nothing more than to be able to give everything this team, but I have like nothing to give right now.
Mm.
The next week, I had my all-time season high kill and blocking records. We upset like a number 16 ranked Purdue and Indiana. Like we had the best week of our season that next week. And I played great. And like, so like my advice to listeners is like, it is so hard to open up. It is so hard to feel like, especially athletes who are like, I feel like in the athletic world, it's preached like, you got to be tough. You got to be tough. Like consistency, you just got to show up. You just got to give it your all every day. But like, it's okay. It's okay to say, you know what? I don't have it right now. And to like take that weight off your shoulders and like have someone else help you carry it. Because like after that day in that coffee shop, like it felt like it was all sunshine and rainbows again. I was like, wait, I don't have to be all alone in this. Like what? Like I can open up and it's okay. Like people want to have your back. Like I think like that would be my advice. Like it's scary and you think like it's a burden or it's an inconvenience or whatever, but like to not give people the chance to help you like is unfair. Like people want to help you.
Ari, this is so huge. Like you can just tell like the work you've put in and just like like again, talking to you is just such a bright light. Like when I'm hearing you talk about this, like I'm also feeling like, wow, like I'm not alone. Like this is so true. And I'm just like really taking in everything you're saying and just so good. I'm so happy you're just not I'm just so happy you're here first.
Happy to be here.
Um, okay, so we kind of got into it a little bit, just like that rough week you kind of started talking about. I want for you to have the chance to maybe open up about some challenges that you faced mentally or physically, and then how did you overcome that?
Yeah. I'm actually gonna tie them together mentally and physically. So I have been a very injured athlete. I have broken 13 bones. I've had knee surgery.
Oh,
I've
jeez.
like I can keep going. I've had like 3 concussions. Like I have a long list. And for the longest time, every single time I would get injured, it I would automatically be at my lowest mentally. Like it was like injury, rock bottom. And as soon as I got injured, I knew I was about to like enter like a major depressive episode. Like it was almost like clockwork. And I didn't really understand it because it was like I was like, I'm not sad that I'm injured. Like it's just like happens. Like I don't really know. And I think I finally realized like I had tied my identity to my sport so closely that as soon as I couldn't play, like I was lost. I didn't know who I was. And it was really hard. And it was hard to figure that out because like this started as early as middle school. Um, and I overcame that by creating a life outside my sport. It's so hard to do, especially at this level when, 6, sometimes 7 days a week, you're kind of dedicating your whole day to it. But like finding hobbies and passions and people outside my sport. So when I can't play it, I still like there's part of me that's still happening was huge.
I love how you talk about that, starting with tying the mental and physical together. I think so many people think they're separate or you treat one differently than the other. But I think maybe I found in my journey one of the best remedies for something I'm going through mentally is to treat it as if it was physical. Like to be like, oh, like if I sprain my ankle, I would literally rise, rest,
Yeah.
ice, compression, like elevate. Like there's steps for it. So if I'm not feeling great on a mental day, like maybe I rest, I treat like maybe I get a dessert or like have
Yeah,
this
love that.
carry through it as if it was physical. And that's so real about injury and then how it also affects you mentally. And I think, again, hence why I wanted to start this podcast. Like when an athlete goes through a physical injury, there's a lot of attention on that physical body part. Like, okay, how does this feel? How's it doing? But then it does tie in your mental because in that I think the mental part of the journey of recovery for an athlete when they're injured physically also has to be checked in on mentally too because you could and I was talking to one of my teammates the other day. She was saying we were just talking about injuries and she was like, yeah, when I tore my ACL, like I was like, oh, it hurts, but I was like, Maybe it doesn't actually hurt. I'm just so scared, or I'm already like thinking it's going to hurt." And I'm like, "Oh, like, cause," and then that's where that mental side comes into.
Yeah.
And then you're just like your story is such a huge example of that. And so what kind of helped you, I guess, what are some things that help you get through your tough days, mentally, or even when even if you're healthy, feeling great, but then just feel like, okay, I need to just get through today.
Yeah. I'm a big hobby girl. Like having hobbies really like saved my life, which sounds so dramatic, but it's so true. Specifically, specifically hobbies that I allow myself to be bad at. Because as a high performing athlete, like when I have a bad day at practice, I'm like, I'm a bad person. Like I know that's not how that works, but like that's what my brain is like wired to do. And I feel like a lot of athletes maybe feel that way.
Yep.
Working on it. But be able to say, I had a bad practice and now it's over. Now I'm gonna do something else and like not have to be great at it really kind of flipped how my brain was wired. So specifically, I really like art. You can see there's a lot of art on my walls. Like I don't consider myself to be a great artist, but I love creating. Like I have a sewing machine on my desk. I paint. I like any physical type of art I love, but I'm not very good at it and I let myself be bad at it. In the spring, I picked up rock climbing. I went once a week with my teammates and I was so bad. Like I'm 6'4", 200 pounds. Like I am not meant to be a rock climber. Like I'm struggling through like the easiest ones for like the toddlers, but I was like, you know what? I'm not trying to be good at it. I'm just trying to have fun. And to be able to like let myself just be a beginner at something, it's hard, but like that I think has really helped my mental health. And just like being able to like compartmentalize my day because like again like I said like if you have a practice like usually like how that goes can affect your whole day. Being able to say practice is over, now it's time for school, okay, now it's time for art, now it's time to read this book. Like being able to keep myself busy and like have interests outside of practice I think is big.
Ari, I can't thank you enough for being here. Jesus. Okay, so first of all, um, okay, this is now my personal, just like, because for me personally, I can't do something if I'm bad at it. Okay, well, I've I can do like some art things, but I have to be like somewhat good at it, or else I don't enjoy it. So
Yeah,
for people like me, what's some advice to give to like let go of the I have to be good at it?
I would pick something that a lot of people aren't good at because like if you look around and you see everyone else doing really good, it can be kind of like dang, what am I doing? But like rock climbing, for example, there's like two people in the gym that can actually rock climb. Like rock climbing's hard.
Yeah.
Like I went with my teammates. We're D1 athletes, right? Like we're like very like physically in shape. None of us were very good. Like we were all so that's or like for example, I this is really niche, but this year I started learning how to play the banjo.
Mm.
Who plays the banjo? Like I'm looking around, there's no one playing the banjo. So there's no one to compare myself to. And like I'm also like instrumentally not gifted. So it's like I'm like nobody's going to be good at the banjo the first 6 months they play the banjo, you know? So it's like picking stuff like that like I feel like is really helpful where there's not that element of like comparison. Um but also on the same note, like I tried to get into crochet. I was not immediately good at it and I was like no way. So like I get it. I get it.
Dude, okay, that makes me feel better, and I know some listeners are definitely gonna listen to you and be like, OMG, I feel so much better about my life. That's so true. Um, Now I just want to, I have some more questions, but that's kind of more to my big question, so I'll save it for in a little bit. But tell us more about your day in the life of a a D1 student athlete, Big Ten. What does that look like?
Yeah. So I wake up around 6:10 and then I go to rehab at 7. Most of us are in rehab, so that's like anyone who's recovering an injury, even people who just want to do like preventative stuff. So that's almost the whole team, but not everyone. And then at 7:30 we have lift. In season we lift for just 30 minutes. Out of season we do an hour. And then we go straight to practice. We practice usually until about 10:30. Plus or minus some. Um, and then we go straight to class. Um, I have three classes on Monday and Wednesdays and two on Tuesdays and Thursdays. No classes Fridays this semester, so
Nice.
great. Um, and then I'm done with my like everyday have tos. I am really involved, so I often have meetings at night. So, for example, last week on Monday night, I had a SAC meeting, like Student Athlete Advisory Committee.
Mhm.
And then on Wednesday night, I'm actually the leader of an affinity group for queer athletes here on campus. And we had a joint affinity group function with like some of the other affinity groups. So that was Wednesday night. So like I often have meetings here and there for those responsibilities. Um, if I have an hour of free time, I like to hang out with my girlfriend. I try.
I love it.
But it's rough, we're both D1 athletes, so it's definitely hard to find
Mhm.
time. I'd say 85% of my free time is dedicated to eating food and sleeping. Maybe not.
That's about right.
Yeah. But that's pretty much the standard day in the life when we're at home. Um, we've been traveling a lot recently for preseason. Like we've been on the road the last like 3 or 4 weekends, leaving again on Thursday. So definitely different with travel. But that's definitely not standard.
So then, okay, so you also just mentioned some other ways you're involved, SAC, and then the affinity group. Do you want to speak more about that and your experience with that?
Yeah. I love our affinity groups. We have three on campus. We have one for queer athletes and allies. We have one for athletes of color, and then we have one for international athletes. And like I am a huge believer that like feeling a sense of belonging is like one of the most important needs that humans have. Like everyone needs to feel that they belong. And my freshman year, I really lacked that. Like I didn't know any other queer students at Illinois. Um and like that was isolating because it's like that's part of my identity. Like I can't just be like, "Oh, that's not important right now." It's like no, like that's your identity. Like you can't just ignore your identity. So I talked to my administration and we previously had an affinity group, but it kind of like no one was running it. There's no meetings, whatever. So we revamped it and we now have regular monthly meetings. We've had travel opportunities, like they sponsored me to go to the Athlete Ally Summit for 2 summers now. I've met some of my best friends here on campus. Like I'm actually hanging out with my co-leader tonight. We're doing a movie.
Awesome.
Um, like having that sense of community, like not just like yes with the other career athletes, but even the other affinity group leaders who are just people who care about something outside their sport and people who care about community and care about social impact, and having that in common has been so huge.
A couple questions there. First of all, I was just wondering this as you speak about it, like where do you think you found this such strong pull towards like feeling this belonging and also like it sounds like you've also been pretty sure of your identity. Like that statement you just made, like, oh, you can't just ignore your identity. Like I think I know I was struggling growing up, like because I'm so multifaceted, like you said,
Mhm.
um, like what truly is my identity. And so then how did you become so confident in yours and maybe some more advice like to young listeners who are kind of feeling lost in that?
No, that's a great question. I really wasn't confident in my identity for a long time. Like I know when I was introducing myself, I was like, like I am who I am. Now that I think about it, like that has been like the last like 2, maybe 3 years of my life. Like growing up, I really felt unsure. I felt lonely a lot of times. Like I felt like I didn't really have community. Um, like I kind of always felt like the outsider. And I knew I was bi early on. But I didn't really talk about it. Like it didn't really come up. Dating a boy in high school, didn't really have any other like queer friends. Club team was pretty not talking about that. um, so I was like, it doesn't really matter. But I don't remember how this came up, but it did come up to my administrator. And 2 years ago, the Big Ten had the first LGBTQ plus symposium for the conference, and they were looking for athletes to go and represent Illinois. and there are not very many out athletes at Illinois. And I don't remember how it came up to my administrator, but she did know that I was bi. And so she asked me to go. She asked, would you like to go? And I said yes. And I was so scared. I was like, I have no idea what to expect. Like, I honestly am not even out to like half the people that I know. Like, I don't even think my parents knew at that point. Not that I was
Wow.
trying to, my parents are so supportive. They're
Yeah.
like my best friends. But I was like, I just don't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
Like kind of irrelevant. And I went to this symposium. It was like a 2-day event in Chicago with athletes from all the different Big Ten schools, administrators, the chancellor, a bunch of different people talking. And that event definitely changed like my life a little bit. The amount of authenticity in that room, indescribable. Like, I fully believe that like being authentic opens the door to other people feeling like they can be authentic. And in that room, I was like, I can be authentic because everyone else was being their true selves and sharing their stories and being vulnerable. There was a lot of storytelling happening. And at that event, there was another event advertised, the Athlete Ally Summit. That year, 2 years ago, was in Seattle. And the Big Ten said, any athletes who want to go to this, we will sponsor you. And I am a big believer in like the yes mentality. Like if an opportunity presents itself, I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna do it. Like even if I have no idea what to expect, because like it could be the coolest thing ever. Thank goodness I said yes, because that weekend was probably one of the best weekends of my life. I made so many friends. I learned so much. So many people were like sharing their stories on like a soul crushing level of vulnerability. Like I can't even there's no words to describe that weekend. And then so I attended it again this year and it was the same impact. Made a lot of really close genuine friendships. But like the reason I am so confident in my identity today and why I care so much is because of those three cumulative events and seeing other people care so much and having the permission to be authentic from them and just really seeing their passion, I think, cultivated mine.
Wow, Kari. Wow. Okay, so first of all, what such great opportunities to have these events to go on. And I'm sitting here listening to you explain your experience. And it's just like, talk about top percent and talk about, okay, so first of all, out of the athletes that go play division college, okay, college sports, then division 1 level, even smaller, then the percentage of that being women, then the percentage of that being a part of an affinity community like and then in your case, the LGBTQ community. And then I can definitely see where like you've expressed before, like feeling like the outsider and like feeling that small percentage, but then going to these events where you're part, it's like, oh, there's a bigger community here, and I like that has probably had to be so huge, and I'm so happy for you that you got to experience these things.
Yeah.
Um, I also want like uh I was gonna ask about Athlete Ally and the activism summit. I guess if there's anything else more you want to share on that, and I guess how those events have impacted you.
Yeah. Athlete Ally is such like a top tier organization. Can't speak enough good things about them. I think to any listeners, I would just say like finding your community can make a bigger impact on you than you think. I didn't realize what I was missing, not really having that strong community or that feeling of belonging with like this part of my identity
Mhm.
until I had it. And even if you think like, oh, like, no, I'm good. Like I have my friends, I have my family, like I'm good. If you have a part of you that you haven't really explored, like go find like a local organization that caters to that. Like there are so many different opportunities out there. You just sometimes have to do a little seeking because it can make a really big impact and you don't even realize. Um I would also say some of the people who impacted me most at these summits were allies, and I would say like don't be afraid to go to events that you don't think you fit in at because like expanding your world and opening your eyes to other people's lived experience, like I think it just like really shapes your character and can shape the way you view the world in a really cool way.
Energy, Kari. Absolutely love that. Absolutely love that. now leading in, you've told us about your dating life, all of the things you're involved in, your passions, who you are, and how you got there. You've told us a little bit about those pockets of time, what you like to do, but Cari Bohm, how do you feed your soul?
What a good question. Um, Easily the number one thing on the list is being outside. I never feel as grounded as I do when I'm in nature. There have been moments in time when it feels like I have no control, and then I go outside and I sit in the grass for just 10 minutes and I'm like, it's gonna be okay. I I think one of the lowest points in my life was my summer of junior year, and kind of on a whim, I went on a month-long backpacking trip in Alaska with my summer camp. And after a month spent in nature, so like truly a month, I was a new person. Like I had a newfound love for life. Like the healing power of Mother Nature is so immense, and it's so easy, especially as an indoor athlete, to like forget to get outside. Like you're so tired at the end of the day, all you want to do is lay in your bed. Like I am such a victim of that. But to make the effort to just be outside feeds my soul like no other. Like I'm a big believer in like pay attention to the little things that make your soul feel alive and just chase that. That's when I'm outside. Like this morning I went for a walk. Like literally it was like a 30-minute walk like around a little nature area, and I was like I feel so ready for the day. Like I feel so energized, I feel so calm, I feel so like balanced and like regulated. Like anything outside. I go hammocking, I go hiking, I go kayaking, anything. Walk to the coffee shop.
I
Big,
love that
big
answer.
walk to the coffee shop fan.
Ooh, ooh, I love that. And I want to speak on that too, as someone who I live in Las Vegas, huge city. Um, my teammates and I know we kind of joke about this. Like our practice gym is in like the basement of Cox Pavilion, and we joke like, "Oh, like we got out of practice early, we'll see some sunlight." But it is a real thing. Like, or sometimes we're going into the gym, and it's like, "Oh, this is the last sunlight we're gonna see all day." But it's like, in between, I guess, practices, but on a long game day, going outside, getting some I quote my teammate Chloe Thomas, who's on the podcast, but she says, "Go get some sunlight in your retinas. Like, just go, get that little like ounce of Mother Nature." And like, obviously, Kari is such a huge advocate for being outdoors, and she's super outdoorsy. But I guess for the people that maybe aren't like that or don't have access to that, like I'll speak on that too. Like, I didn't think I was a morning person, but and I'm kind of not really now, but sometimes I walk my boyfriend's dog in the morning, take him out real quick, and I really realize like, oh, that really gets me, like jumpstarts my day. Sunlight, moving my body outside really makes me feel a lot better than if I were to just like lay in bed and then slowly like pull myself out of it. But I want to speak on that, the power of Mother Nature as well.
Yeah. It's definitely hard to like make that first move of like getting up and like going to do something. But then once you're there, it's just like, this is what I needed. I love the sunlight in the retinas quote. My teammate calls it photosynthesis time.
Photosynthesis time. I love that.
We're
Uh,
big photosynthesizers on our team.
that's so funny. Kari, is there anything else you want to share with the podcast?
Um, Guys, I just want to say to all the listeners, the host of this podcast is the coolest person ever. When I got the text saying asking if I would be on this podcast, I was so excited. Here's another thing that feeds anyone's soul, like talking to people that are just really cool. Like having conversations that are deeper than, hey, what'd you do today? Or like, how was practice? Like having like genuine conversations with people and asking questions that don't come up on like the surface level, like that's so important. Like take the time to go do that with someone who's cool in your life.
Oh, Kari, I love that. And I think, again, I can't thank you enough for being here, but I feel like I've always been like a deeper person. I want to know more than just the surface level, but I feel like that's weird to do in everyday life. Like you don't just go up to someone and be like, "What feeds your soul?" They're like, "What? Like, what does that mean?" Huh? So like connecting with people who also like appreciate this level of like intimacy and just connection, it's like very fulfilling to me. So I can't thank you enough for being here.
Yeah, of course.
I guess closing out this episode with Cari Bohm. Stay tuned for more episodes, and I hope you enjoyed. And go do something. Go outside. Go get some photosynthesis time.